next poster, the way
In
you and
tape
I go
one,
about
Doug
building
Naylor explained that
all I want
control
world.
theory teaches that all people have psychological needs of belonging, gaining power, having fun, and being free. All behavior is driven by these needs, and our emotions of being glad, mad, sad, or afraid tell us how well our needs are being met. In addition to teaching curriculum content, teachers in today's schools need to teach their students the values and practices of responsible behavior.
Teachers have in their value system information from the State Department, from professional journals, from peers, from parents. All that we incorporate in our value system, and it says teach content. But see, I'm going back to the at-risk thing, and I'm saying, but content has not yet answered our problems.
We haven't been too successful in the content areas, and we tend to do harder what wasn't working originally, rather than saying, what are some new techniques to achieve that?
Right. See, we remember that kids who have school in the bad for me place of their brain, I don't care how much more you ask them to do, how much longer the school day becomes, how many more homework assignments that you give them, they don't value what school is bringing to them. And you and I just don't work hard at things we don't value. So we really need to talk that whole thing of how can school help you in your life? Well, it's the power place. I mean, this is the intellectual bank. This is where you go to get what you need to live life. Learning is a natural process. What we do is need to solve problems, and we learn. We want things we haven't got. An infant wants mobility. Doesn't walk, must walk. Wants to communicate. Doesn't talk, must talk. I mean, so it's a whole process of correcting minuses. That's what learning is all about. And a big, huge minuses in life is not having enough can-do. So we just need to work with kids and have them appreciate school more. And you can't say, appreciate me. You live with them more effectively. And I want to talk about now the whole idea of how do we get kids to work together in this way. And that's the whole concept of responsibility training. And that's what this is all about, having kids understand what responsibility is about. And begins with the idea of having kids say, how good is your life? You know? How good are things? You and I are constantly in assessment, but if we live on this gray side of life where we're feeling mad, sad, or afraid too much of the time, where there are too many minuses going on in life, then we develop a minus lifestyle. It's weak. The car's going in the wrong place. And what we want everybody to do is to have a chance to live over here, and changing choices is what happens. You see the whole concept of, I'm picturing people. That's what we're doing. We're picturing. We're getting into kids' minds this whole idea of how do we want life. We're spending a little bit of time helping them to say, this is the way I want to spend life. We're putting pictures in mind. Once the pictures are in mind, then we can goal, plan, action, result. I don't know any way to make those pictures good except to talk with them, have them put the values on it, and figure out what they want to do. Make statements, declarations, commitments, set goals. This is how we want our classroom to be. In a whole set of ways. And once you've got this described, you've got to go, this is what we want in our classroom. Then you can start the process of making it happen. And it is a process through which you make it happen. Most kids tend to think that rules are some heinous design of adults to keep them from doing what they want in life. You know, great inhibitors. Parents always make rules. Teachers always make rules, so we can't do what we want. Let's examine rules with them. The function of rules. You know, I want to ask you, you tell me something that you do in your life that doesn't have some guideline, some organized way, some rule of life that you use to get it. I mean, let's take a chocolate cake. You couldn't even make that without a recipe, right? Rules are enablers. Plain and simple enablers. They enable us to live together successfully. What a remarkable understanding for kids to come to. Rules aren't bad things. Rules are life-giving. We've got to have kids understand that. Rules in families, health rules, my gosh, how many health rules are there? School rules, game rules. You couldn't play a game without a set of rules.
Doug, how do you explain that gangs are
filled with very strict rules.
Oh, yes.
And the kids accept them.
Absolutely, because they see there it gets them what they want. There's so much more I can do with your support than I would dare to do alone. So I need you behind me, I need you with me, I need the name of the organization to push me up in somebody's mind. I think we need to ask kids what we want to be together for. And we need to set our own class rules. See, it's very important that kids have a say in that. So we need a set of rules is what I'm saying. See, we want to say, do we want a good life together, a plus life together? If we want one, what rules do we agree to live by? And we have to make them. Okay? That's step one and step two. Picture in the mind of how good life can be together, and then the rules that we agree to live by to make it that way. Then you and I have to have some way of working with kids to enforce those rules. When kids choose to break rules, what are they doing? I'm not trying to be tricky. Yeah, absolutely.
They're exercising their freedom.
They're taking a direct pathway to what they want. Zoom. Just whap, off they go. Okay, example, cafeteria. It's hot dog day. Pictures in the kid's head, or I want mine now. Here's a line. I don't wait in lines. You know, I go, wham, off they go. Teacher on duty says, whoa. No, we do have rules. You know, we are taking our turn. Please come to the end of the line. These kids do this a lot. So teacher pulls them off to the side into a place called timeout. Why do athletic teams call timeout? Yeah, new plan, right? See, that's what the timeout concept is. It's not prison, it's not incarceration. You know, see, what we're doing with timeout is saying you chose a behavior that took you in a direction that if you continue will produce trouble for you. I am now your friend. I am saying, stop, please. If the kid refuses to stop, then I'm going to say, you're choosing timeout, because in this place, I won't allow you to keep going in that direction, which is bad for you and for the rest of us. I don't say, Stephanie, drag your little self into that chair and put it down and stay there until I tell you to get up. But in this process, I say, Stephanie, you're choosing timeout. I don't even have to get purple, you know. The veins in my neck don't even have to stand out. I'm just saying, Stephanie, you're choosing timeout. After she's run through a couple of things. The youngster makes a mistake, I say, please stop. I mean, that's a nice thing to say. If the youngster stops, I ask Clarice to stop, and she stops. I'm going to find time to walk by her and say, good job. Success is glue. She stopped. She's back on task. Glue. Not positive reinforcement, glue. You know, it's stronger. That's all. I got to do that to her. See, she has to get that registration of she did the right thing and there's a payoff for her. I feel good about that. That's payoff. Just I feel good. And so she does. But if she runs through that, again, I'm going to say second time, not stop. I'm going to say is what you're doing now against our rules. And will you stop for the rest of the period? Now, we've made the rules together. I mean, what can she say? It's not, I don't know. She could say, I don't know. I would quickly inform her, I do. It is against the rule. Will you stop for the rest of the period? Verbal contract. First I said, please stop, then verbal contract. If she doesn't follow, if she does, I'm going to pat her again. If she doesn't, I'm going to say, Clarice, you're choosing timeout. Okay, and timeout is a place aside where Larissa is going to go for one purpose only, that's to figure out how she's going to handle this better than the way she did. So it's to make a new plan. All right? Now, that's this whole process. So timeout is an aside place. See, it really is a condition. I can ask Joe to be in timeout in his seat. He never needs to move it. What timeout is in this classroom is Joe is no longer doing anything the rest of us are doing. Timeout. Doesn't the game stop when it's timeout? It doesn't go on. Timeout. So Joe's timeout. Joe can be timed out in his chair as well as someplace else. The thing is, he's still going to make a plan, and I want to go through that a little bit with you. What happens in the timeout place? But the timeout process usually is a progressive kind of thing. Timeout 1 is the easiest, simplest place. It could be in his chair. When he's ready to return to the action to come out of timeout, he tells me what his plan is. If Joe makes a plan and doesn't follow through with it, then Joe would be escalated to a timeout thing. It would go from verbal to written. And he would use a form to write his plan. He can hold up his hand. If he's going to write his plan on a plan-making paper, and you have plenty of samples for plan-making papers in your folder that's called Club S. If Joe continues to try to take the room apart from his timeout 2 place in the room, then he's going to go to timeout 3, which might be the office or someplace else. Okay? Some outside of the room place. I know classrooms that send, or schools that have arranged, teachers are buddies. And I would send my youngster across the hall, and that teacher would send hers to me. I have nothing to do with any youngster that comes to me except provide a chair, a time and place. When the youngster has thought it through and has made his plan, the youngster just shows me the plan in the air. I put the time the youngster left my room, and the youngster goes back across the hall, the regular teacher. I am not counseling. I am not approving the plan. I'm just providing a place out of the room for the youngster to make his plan. I am reinforcing the minus aspect. And timeout happens at home. Some people call that suspension. Some people call timeout 3 in-school suspension. It's possible to do that. I don't like either term, because suspension says I'm taking control of your life. Timeout says I'm giving you another opportunity to regain control of it. And this is how you do it. So each level is how you do timeout at that level. And you need to decide what it is that you're going to do in your classroom or in your school. When whole schools decide to go into a timeout kind of thing instead of a coercive discipline plan, then the staff sits down and decides what timeout's going to be. What timeout 1 is going to be, what timeout 2 is going to be, what timeout 3 is going to be. If there aren't enough people in the staff to have one person that takes timeout 3, then the staff will arrange some time to free teachers, some way to free teachers. So maybe Doris would have it the first 2 periods in the morning, Larissa would have it the second 2 or something, you see? If you've got a lot of kids who are at risk in your school and are choosing to be dedicated disruptors of the program, then you're going to have lots going on there. So you're going to have somebody in there. The person in this room should be somebody who's not afraid to deal with kids who are mad. Because they are. They're terribly angry when they get this stage. So timeout is a series of progressive events, progressive separations. Joe's separated from program in his regular seat. If he moves to a timeout place in the room, that's a farther separation from the program. If he moves outside of our classroom someplace, that's an increased separation from the classroom. If he goes home, that's even another one. See, now, parents, I mean, they don't like their kids coming home anytime. But it's a lot better to have them come home this when it's their problem than it is when it's the parent's problem. So you really need to separate that. Yes, dear?
So this is all a progressive thing then? Each day they start at timeout 1 again?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's going to come a time when a certain degree of behavior might produce an entry level today. And you know, I mean, what if I go around punching people all the time? I mean, I knock you flat on your back. That's not timeout 1. I mean, that's an assault. That would be dealt at maybe the timeout 3 level immediately. Some schools say, wait a minute, if you're going to punch somebody's lights out, you're going home. That's it. I mean, that's fine. There's not a thing wrong with that. But I'm saying you got to go home and figure it out. Now, when that youngster comes back home from a timeout, or when the youngster comes out of timeout, there must be, here's my plan, and you and I have to talk about what that plan's going to be. See, it's not the writing of a plan or the youngster thinking of a plan. It's the interaction with a responsible adult talking about what the plan is going to be. So I can help you get more information to sort for use in your mind. So each time there's a plan made, we need to talk about what the plan is and what it's going to do for you when it's carried out, how it's going to help you. Then there's the practice period, okay? If it's simple words, I recall a video that Bill Glasser did when he was talking with a fighting person. And she was a high school student who was a fighting person. And he said, well, what do you want to do with your fighting? Would you like to be a professional fighter? Of course, this is a young woman. No. And he said, that's right, you wouldn't want to be a fighter. Well, he went through this whole thing with her. And he said, well, I guess what you really want is just to be known as a tough person. She said, that's right, I do. Well, he said, then let's figure out a way to be a tough person so you don't have to get yourself and other people in trouble. And they got down to saying, he said, he offered her a whole bunch of plans, which she said, I couldn't do that. Finally, he said, remember, he's offering her now, okay? See, what he's doing is he's running more and more information in here. He's not saying you got to figure it out yourself. She's had 15 years to do that. She hasn't done it very well yet. So he's given her some things to think about along the way, pumping information in here. And finally, he comes up with the idea, well, why don't you just say this? How would this work? If somebody comes up and tries to get you into a fight, you just look them straight in the eye and say, you don't control me, and I'm not going to fight you today. And back away. He said, could you do that? Boy, her eyes got really big. She said, yeah, I could do that. Would you do that? She said, yeah, I think I would. He said, okay, say it to me. Tell me how you would say it right now to a person. Tell me, Larice, how would you say it?
You don't control me and I won't fight you today.
Pretty good? I like that. I like that. Make it a little more resolved, you know. Tell me that way.
You don't control me and I won't fight you today.
All right. I like that. All right. See, now look at what I've done. We've come out of here. This information, we've figured out something to do, and she's practiced it. I've given her reinforcement, so that sounds really good. You'll be able to do that. Now, the next thing I have to do is go after the result. We've done goal. She knows why she's not going to fight anymore. She's made a plan to do it. We've done a little practice, but she's going to have to do the rest of this on her own. And then I'm going to say, now I want to see you when you've had a chance to use this. When do you think we should get together again to talk about it? Now, with a lot of kids, I would just say, after recess I want to see you, or I want to see you after lunch, or I want to see you after school, or I want to see you first thing tomorrow morning. We would set the time. If we don't get the motions involved in this thing, talking about them, then we're not going to have the kid committed to use the plan again in the future. We have to close the act, goal, plan, action, results. We have to evaluate those results so that we can take the next step. If the plan was a good one, will you use it again? Under what circumstances would you use it again? You know, see, I would just amplify that. So I'd broaden, again, what that youngster knows about using that plan for effect. If it didn't work, then I would say, was it the plan's problem or was it the way you used it? You know, like I could say to you, I'm not going to fight you, you know, you don't control me and I'm not going to fight you, but you got me mad today on your instep. You know, I mean, I didn't fight you. I accidentally stepped on her toe, you know, that kind of thing. So, and then she comes back to me and says the plan doesn't work. You know, so what we got to discern, and the only way we do that is through conversation, is how did it go? What happened? And she said it doesn't work, and we go through this to find out. When you and I want to help people, there are only two places we can help them in the behavior cycle. Goal, plan. From then on, they're on their own. Do you choose their actions? See, you and I keep trying. This is where we interact all the time. We go after the action. We say, stop. Do it this way. Action is number 3 in the order. It's goal, plan that precede it. So when you and I try to control from this point, we're helpless. There's already too much commitment to do this. So we've got to go back into that and say, what was your goal? What is it that you wanted in there? And when we find something like tough, then we have something. Remember, always we're after needs. Always we're after needs. So whatever it is, no matter how unpleasant the kid's behavior is, what they want is simply something to fulfill one of these needs. So when we find the need, then we can redirect the behavior. Would you say that? Sure, into a more acceptable way. One other thing, while we deal with the corrective process, we've got to put a big campaign on for living together cooperatively and effectively. Big campaign on for that. See, what we really want is this kind of a life together. We do not get this kind of a life together by just emphasizing the no-nos. But this is what we do in an effort to direct more positive behavior on becoming this kind of a group together. So we have to have a plan. I've given you one example. It's the green folder and it's called Club S. I've seen this sort of thing operate in classrooms from K to 12. And all it does is give kids recognition for being this kind of a person. There are many practices that give this kind of reinforcement to kids. But I'm saying, see, you need to design in your classroom how you're going to do these things together so you have a way of living in that direction. You only use the correction when somebody breaks out of that pattern. See, so there's always a huge good life side of your program. Off to the side of that is the correction. So responsibility training is a way to live with your kids. I've given you a taxonomy, a way to do it that puts control theory into operation in your classroom.